Greetings, Sir and Sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix. And of course, welcome back once more to the Vehicle Designer and a brand new vehicle, the Throne of Testing. As the name may imply, this is simply a floating vehicle, not a fortress in fact, simply designed to test out new items by having plenty of space on the inside of it and plenty of space on the outside of it, meaning we can place new items, test them out, and with a very large open build plan, it means we can also shoot things in front of us relatively easily. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, as we are testing out two new items which have been added in the recent patches, whilst I wasn't covering From the Depths. The first item, let's see if I can remember this off the top of my head, is the radioisotope geoelectric generator, or something similar to that. I feel like I got close, but not quite. It's the radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Okay, I either got that correct or I was close. I literally can't remember what I've just said. I will tell when I'm doing editing. Anyway, the RTG is pretty much what you might think it is. It's a generator. It generates electricity, but it's a little bit special in terms of From the Depths, as it doesn't cost resource after the initial cost, which admittedly is quite high. It's a lot of crystal, but thankfully crystal is a renewable resource. It's very easy to create, as you don't even need to actually harvest it from the harvest zones. You can simply grow it in the farms. That is really cool. I love the idea of having a vehicle which doesn't require fuel at all. So that is definitely something I'll be testing out, especially with the electric engine, seeing just how many of these will actually need to make anything work. Currently, this little setup I have of a single RTG, which by the way doesn't actually need to connect to the battery. We could simply put it here and it still does the exact same thing. We then have a battery, as I just mentioned, attached to an electrical engine, currently providing around about 30 to 35 power, which you can see in tiny little numbers in the bottom right. This is then powering a set of jets behind our, I want to call them altars, or perhaps monoliths to the dark gods. I couldn't resist, I'm so sorry, because they have a new way of doing the posters and it's so much easier now, and I think that's pretty. So yeah, we'll be testing out that, and secondly, we'll be testing out the new particle cannon. This I am really excited to test. Admittedly, weirdly, not as much as the RTG, because that just seems to fit my playstyle, but the particle cannon gives us another way to use electricity, rather than simply using the lasers, which is really cool, because I've noticed that the lasers have been changed in ways I don't particularly like. I've been fixing up a secret ship in the background, which is now called the Relic, which actually did used to use a laser, and I'm not really happy with it anymore, so perhaps the particle cannon can be its replacement. Now, the particle cannon is pretty big, so what we're going to do is quickly mount it on here, and let's have a quick look at the stats before I go off and try to make this thing work. So here we are, we've got a lot of things to check out. We have damage and inaccuracy, we have efficient or overclocked, we have the field of fire, damage. There's a lot of stuff to test out, and honestly I'm not sure which I'm going to test out first, but honestly, it's all pretty well labelled. I haven't watched a video on this, I haven't looked at the forums. As always, I like to learn by simply doing, so we're going to fire at things until we figure out a good way to use it. So now I've remembered how to actually make it so the mouse is not bound to your movement when you're trying to do all this, I might feel a little bit less seasick, although the rocking doesn't really help. So with the particle cannon, what do we have? I've just been looking at the numbers, just moving some things around, and it's actually, like I say, very self-explanatory, which I like a lot. Now watch me say something completely wrong and find out later after I've rendered the video. So we have the horizontal / vertical focus. With this we can focus on moving left and right in terms of aim, or up and down, as you might imagine, horizontal versus vertical. And this, by the looks of it, affects the accuracy, not how much it actually can move left and right and up and down. So that's very interesting. And the reason why I feel like that's the case is because we then have the field of fire. The field of fire is how many degrees you can be off and still shoot. The higher accuracy is in the middle, the less accurate is obviously further away from directly in front of it. So really having it perhaps a bit lower might be better, but for now we're having it on maximum because I'm silly. The damage and attenuation, which I probably pronounced horribly wrong, is pretty cool. Actually, it's a really interesting concept. The idea is the damage from this gun weakens as it goes more and more kilometers away from the first shot, and you can choose to either have a higher starter damage or less drop-off in terms of damage. So that's really weird. As we can see here, we've got that single tube there, which is currently firing in the air if we do fire it again, and we can see the basic stats. Energy use is 20 per shot, the range is actually surprisingly far, honestly. Initial damage is 9, and there's the attenuation. So, as we move this lovely thing up or down, we can see the initial damage is going down, but then the attenuation drops as well. However, if we go all the way to the top here, the range is completely nerfed, the initial damage is incredibly high, but the attenuation is also brutal. So we're going to lose a lot of damage very, very quickly. In fact, pretty much stopping it very, well, any distance away. I didn't want to say quickly again, so I completely changed the sentence. Field of fire is at max. The overclock is pretty simple. You can use more energy to do more damage or less energy to do less damage, but it is more efficient the less damage you deal. As we can see, it currently uses 20 per shot to do 100. That's a really neat set of numbers. And if we maximize it, it's 2,000 per shot to do 1,000. And now I've saw that, I actually no longer stand by my previous convictions. So 100, so it's basically timesing itself by 10 in terms of damage. However, it's timesing itself by 100 in terms of energy usage. So obviously that's not particularly efficient for our poor energy reserves now, is it? So that's definitely something we'll have to look at later. Damage and inaccuracy, it's literally what you think. More damage versus more accurate. What do you want? Do you want it to be a long-range sniper weapon, or do you want it to be an absolute scattered shotgun? Because you can do that, because not all the particles fire at once. Well, they do fire at once, but they fire separately. The charge time is what I'm most interested in, honestly. This is the one I want to test out more than all the others. If we increase the charge time, it becomes more accurate. As you can see, the horizontal and vertical focus is getting better and better and better. If I was actually on the right one there we are. The time between the shots is increasing, but the damage is also increasing, and by the looks of it, this is a linear thing. Let's go at 1. 1 is 100 damage, then at 10, it's 1,000 damage. So times 10, yeah, so it's actually completely linear. And so really, what's the point of having it lower? Well, other than the fact you'll get more shots off before it gets damaged, perhaps. But in terms of pure damage output, it's the same damage output per second, but way more accurate. I can't see why I would do that. Then there's all these things which we're going to get into later. So, let's actually build this thing, shall we? We're going to build a very simple one to start off with. So, we have the particle tubes, we can then add the... where are you? The Terminator, and the Terminator makes this a fully functioning pipe that doesn't shoot into the air. Now what I can do is actually connect these pipes together and put them into, like, this one goes all the way out and then comes back into this one, and that makes, I think, one single powerful particle. At least that's how it looked earlier. There we are. With these, however, we're basically making 4 extremely weak, by the way, because I'm making these ridiculously small right now for our limited power resource. There we are. Very weak shots, but it will shoot basically 3 particles, each of them being different projectiles. It's not shooting a single shot. So if we turn this on now...
Taking control. West only.
There we are. We just shot and actually did quite a bit of damage, considering how limited energy we had and the fact this is a tiny, tiny weapon. Do it again. And that is piercing with a rate of armor piercing 20, because that's the stat we currently have. Fire again, please. Do the thing. Thank you. Okay. So then, let's start messing around with things, shall we? That seems fun. So, let's make it completely inaccurate by increasing damage massively. It's hard to tell. Do that again. You're apparently now very inaccurate. We're saying that we're also very close to the target, so it doesn't really matter too much. Okay, that was pretty cool, though you did just hit a damaged tile. Do another shot, and then we'll change it again. Okay. Let's change the charge time down to 1. And now it's far less accurate, as we can see. And some of the shots are actually going off. And that's pretty bad, because how close this target is. I think that's more showing how much damage per second we're actually doing, because the other shots were every 10 seconds. Also, we simply don't have enough power right now. That's also that's something to be concerned about. Okay, so already out of power. Processed resources, I think it was. Let's add one of these huge ones. We'll add a couple over here. 1, 2, 3. And by a couple, I mean 3, obviously. The smallest one produces 50 per time. This one produces 675. Of course, the problem is we don't have enough reserves, so let's also increase our battery a little bit. There we are. Massive battery reserves, a much powerful electric engine because of this, and now this isn't running out of energy, and as we can see, it seems to be doing a lot better. That one shot went absolute miles. Okay. Off.
Turning off.
Okay, so what do we have here? We could probably overclock this to see how silly this can actually get. Now that's going to require 6,000 per shot per limb, and there's 3 limbs. If we maximise this, it's going to cost 60,000 per shot, which means we simply don't have enough for even one of the limbs. That is actually crazy. What we really want to look at is about 7,000 maybe. 6,000 would be a lot safer. Okay, 6,300 each. That should be pretty cool. And let's begin again.
Taking control.
I keep on thinking it's this one.
Wait only.
Oh wow. Space-wise, that's doing pretty well. In terms of accuracy, though, it's absolutely terrible. And if we wanted to make it more accurate over a longer distance, we would have to sacrifice a lot of this. Which would, of course, decrease the damage massively, but now it can fire at a longer range and still deal the same amount of damage, and then we'd have to decrease damage again to increase accuracy and all this other stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is quickly skip ahead now, make this a little bit bigger, put down a load more of these, and test out a couple of different modes to see if we can find one we actually like. Okay, let's get into the first of probably very many silly experiments to understand the weapon better. We now have a single one-way pipe exiting here, entering here, which is a length of 94. Now this, like I say, is a one-way pipe, meaning despite the fact it's using 2 outlets, it's only going to be counting as 1 shot. This means we can stack up the damage very, very easily, which should be pretty useful for certain types, like the piercing and the EMP, perhaps even the explosive shot, having a very compact explosion, being able to damage even the hardiest of metal and such, but I'm not too sure about that one just yet. Either way, right now we're going to be using the EMP. So 50% is applied as EMP, and I'm guessing the other 50 is still counted as the regular laser damage, at least that's my basic understanding. I've decided to get this down to 50, so we're not losing too much damage over range, but we're still actually doing a lot of damage. I've put the horizontal and vertical focus back into the middle because I feel like I was being silly before, and the inaccuracy is at 25, so it's favouring accuracy, but it's still probably going to miss quite a few shots. We're also quite efficient because honestly I don't have enough power. It really does feel like if I had a larger version of this laser we could make it really efficient and do the damage, or we could go absolutely silly and have loads of battery power and do a ridiculous amount of damage. But it does feel like the larger ones have a lot more rewards than the smaller ones unless you have a stupid amount of power to spare, so you can overclock it all the way. Actually, if we look, if we overclock this to max, as we can see, that is silly. 1,880,000 per shot, range of 6,438 meters, initial damage of 470,000, which of course could be upped dramatically if we change some of the other settings. So for now, let's put it back to where it was, so we can actually shoot it. Well, actually, we're a little bit off, but still. So for now, you off. Summon in the enemy. There we are, our test subject.
Turning off.
So it doesn't kill our little platform, and fire away. Let's see how much EMP we can actually deal. Okay, well, we hit the target. We can see the EMP going through it, and that's still going through. Okay, that looked fairly nasty, honestly. Oh, it's still going. Second shot now hitting. The first one hadn't even ended yet. That one seemed to finish a lot faster. But saying that, that is definitely showing signs of taking some serious damage on the inside. Shields are still up though, which is a little bit concerning. So that's 3 shots. A fourth, maybe? Turret a little bit damaged. Yeah, that's done really well, considering how large this vehicle is and how small that weapon is. Although saying that, we have had to do a lot of energy to actually get it running. It can definitely cripple a turret in one shot, which is definitely what we want against larger vehicles. Actually taking out the AI isn't really going to happen very often. So saying that, that was very impressive. AI dead. Oh my god, as soon as I said it, it happened. That was impressive. I've got to say, that was very, very impressive. So, as an EMP weapon, this definitely works out pretty well. And we could definitely make this better. I mean, that's fairly obvious. Right now we have this out here looking stupid because I wanted to see just how large it is. And we could have it a lot bigger, making it more efficient. We could have it a lot bigger, just making it more powerful. And for that, I'm fairly happy. Before we do something else, like add multiple inputs to see if maybe a more shotgun approach would do pretty well, perhaps with piercing or the impact weapon type, let's see how the piercing does using the more sniper-orientated weapon. Of course, I will have to test these out on a much larger scale later, but honestly, with just this, I am really impressed with the EMP capabilities, especially since we can make it huge if we want, or tiny. The fact it actually hits the target instantly is a very, very big boon indeed. So let's turn that on. Hopefully it can actually hit the target without hitting the throne. That was intentional. With that totally intentional blunder out of the way, let's fire the piercing shot. Okay, it hit straight away. I was expecting to be able to move a little bit first. That kind of skimmed the side, so it's hard to tell how far it actually went into the enemy. That went straight through the enemy. I'm fairly certain I saw that come out the other side. Not enough damage though to really do much to the enemy on the way through. Again, going straight through, damaging something weaker on the inside, but we definitely need more damage. That isn't enough damage to really do much. And again, yep, things are falling out from the inside, but not so much from the outside. So some internal damage, not that much really, not too impressed in comparison to the advanced cannons, which can do things very similar, but still fairly cool, and not using ammunition, which always makes me happy. So what if we swap that for the lovely thing known as impact? Now our power to charge back up a little bit. Sadly, we are shooting before the power is fully charged. Okay, that was pretty cool. Destroyed the outer armor and damaged the turret in one shot. That's fairly good. Again, actually hitting instantly, so most of the shots will be hitting. Just adds so much to this weapon. Very cool. And finally, before we swap over, let's have the explosive shock. I'm really hoping I'm impressed with this, but I just don't think I will be. Okay, to be fair, that did hit something explosive because it was already exposed, so that is a bit of a false positive. Trying to be a realist. Maybe I'm wrong. That went through the metal and definitely detonated things. Okay, I'm impressed enough by that. It's actually doing less damage than it looks. The huge explosion radius, though, is very much appreciated. That looks very, very cool. But it's... if you actually look at the damage it's dealing, it's not really doing as much as you might think. And the reason why I was so pessimistic about that is because that's exactly what the cram cannons are like when they hit a target. This massive explosion, little bits flying everywhere, but really you're just leaving scorch marks. I lied. I have no idea what to think about this. Half the shots are doing just glorious damage, and the other half just not enough. I feel like against lighter enemies with less armor, that's going to be fantastic. So let's take away the enemy yet again, and now let's make it more let's make it more balanced. Let's have an element of everything. So I want the rate of fire to be more like about a 4 or something like that. Damage and inaccuracy down back to about in the middle. Efficiency, I do actually want it to be a bit more efficient though. Because now what we're going to do is take away this, sadly, and every single one of those outputs or inputs or whatever you want to call them is going to have its own little particle tube. Before we do anything else serious, I just need to show this off. If you turn the charge time to minimum, it's already a very fast firing weapon and incredibly inaccurate. However, if you then take control of the weapon, it fires around about 100 times per second. And as you can see, it looks absolutely amazing. You are going to hit everything but the enemy with this. And then maybe the enemy as well. Maybe even the seagulls will eventually be killed by this. After quite a few tests, and being disappointed with some of the results, I've found out two things. First of all, going down the middle of the road with this weapon seems to be a bad idea, at least with this size of weapon. Perhaps it'll be better with a larger weapon, but with this, it just feels really underwhelming if you go down the middle path, going for a medium fire rate with medium accuracy and such. It just feels like everything it does is bad, rather than everything it does is being mediocre. So instead, we're going for a full-on short-range weapon. We are basically making a shotgun with a long load time. So we have maximum inaccuracy for maximum damage. We're actually pretty good for overclock, so our energy draw isn't too bad. Our field of fire is still pretty huge. Our damage and attenuation is purely on the side of maximum damage and loads of drop-off. So as soon as the enemy is even a slight distance away, it's going to be worthless, but hopefully with all of this in play and using impact, we should be able to deal quite a bit of damage very quickly, with 65,000 damage being dealt per pipe, and we are using 4 pipes, all using the U-turns, meaning each one is their own weapon rather than connecting to each other to combine their power. And against us we have the Bulwark, because the Bulwark is terrifying and completely coated in shields now. Thankfully, this ignores shields, which makes me very happy. So what we're going to do is turn it on and see how it does. Oh wow! Did anyone remember the fact there was a cannon there a second ago? Can I see that again, please? Fire again. Do the thing. Oh wow. That is actually a lot better than I expected. I wonder how this thing would do with piercing, or even EMP then. Short-range EMP shotgun. That has gutted that, and the Bulwark has legendary healing abilities, but it's actually outdoing it. Fire again. You have made me very happy, weapon. Okay, this one I'm definitely keeping in. So, swap over to EMP for a second. Or maybe shotgun, sorry, or maybe explosive after this. That is a lot of internal damage being done. And it's sinking. Now that, I think, was cancelled out by certain things inside the enemy, as I think it has the... I forgot what they're called, but there are items which basically stops EMP in its tracks if you attach it to AI and such. And I'm fairly certain the Bulwark has these. So, let's swap back over to something else, like the Explosive Shock, now that lag is over. Not as impressive as Impact, but still pretty cool. And finally, go with Piercing. Although I do think Impact is definitely the victor here with the shotgun version. I wonder how far that went. Doesn't look like too far. Try again. Maybe I should take aim for a second. Okay, let's aim there. Didn't destroy it. Okay, it went through. Continue to go through. Okay, that has definitely done a lot of damage, although I still think with the piercing weapon, having one focused shot would be a lot better. With this, on the other hand, Impact definitely seems to be the king, although EMP wasn't bad. But look at that! That's just stupid! It still goes through the enemy armor, but it destroys everything in its wake. Of course, not going as far as the piercing, having only half of the armor piercing value. Yeah, I feel like if I managed to refine this, I would be incredibly happy. So let's just turn down the charge time for a bit of fun, and let the shotgun do its business. That is doing significantly less. Like, more so than I expected. I definitely have enough energy. I am slowly running out, but right now we are feeding it fully. Oh wow, that's going through a lot of things. I think it's because of lag, I'm not quite seeing exactly what it's doing. Okay, I think I'm sold at this point. I do feel at this point in time that a long-range specialised one or a short-range specialised one is definitely the way to go, because this is still a very small turret. If you put this in a hull, you would have plenty of space left, so you could make this a lot more powerful with a larger vessel. And that's exactly what I plan to do, as I am bringing back a vessel of old, as I said at the start, which I have now renamed the Relic, and I will be showing that off next time, perhaps using a much larger variant of the particle cannon. A dangerous weapon if it gets hurt, but also probably one of the most fun weapons I've actually played around with so far. A lot easier to understand than a lot of the other weapons, getting into it, and just look at the effect. So, I'll just leave this going on in the background. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. In the next episode, we are going to do a little bit more building perhaps, but we'll definitely get into the campaign regardless what I do, even if I do end up going on a building spree, and I'll try and cover these in a little bit more detail, but honestly, there's not much to say. They cost a lot of crystal, and they power batteries for free. That's pretty much that. Poor Bulwark. Would have killed us if the AI was on though, so it can at least feel happy about that.